Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to today's newspaper review. Let's take a look at the stories dominating today's newspaper headlines. Firstly, we'll start from the Daily Trust newspaper. On the Daily Trust newspaper on page 3 and 4, which is boldly written there, after 126 days in custody, el-rufai's case adjourned till September. After el-rufai has stayed 126 days in custody, his case has been adjourned till September. At the top of the newspaper, Fulani leaders in Oyo decry Igbo's ultimatum. Fulani leaders in Oyo decried Igbo's ultimatum. To get our full story, go to page 22 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Still in the same newspaper, U.S. sanctions Nigerian BDC operators, firms linked to ISIS financing. To get our full story, go to page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Away from that newspaper to the Daily Sun. On the Daily Sun in page 6, which is Fight Against Terrorism, U.S. names Nigerian, 2 others, 6 entities as ISIS financiers. To get a full story, go to page 6 of the Daily Sun newspaper. At the top of the newspaper, concerns over federal government failure to implement local government autonomy, direct funding. 2 years after Supreme Court nod. To get a full story, go to page 15 and 19 of the newspaper. At the bottom of the newspaper, el-rufai opts for no case submission, loses bail variation bid. el-rufai opts for no case submission, loses bail variation bid. To get a full story, you go to page 5 of the newspaper. Cash culture defies digital payments as Nigerians hold 5.19 trillion naira outside banks. To get a full story, go to page 2 of the newspaper. Away from that newspaper to the Punch. On the Punch in page 2, which is on state police. Senate votes today as Tinubu transmits bill to National Assembly. At the top of the newspaper, Nigerian Democratic Coalition rejects Abdulsalami's claims on Abiola military rule. To get a full story, you go to page 7 of the newspaper. At the bottom of the newspaper, Nigeria spends 5 times more on debt than health, education. This is coming from a report that Nigeria spends 5 times more on debt than health and education. To get a full story, go to page 22 of the Punch newspaper. Still in the same newspaper, adoption fear. Oyo, NUT rejects school resumption. On adoption fear, Oyo NUT rejects school resumption. To get a full story, go to page 3 of the Punch newspaper. Away from that newspaper to First Daily newspaper. On First Daily newspaper, which is boldly written, Who policies Nigeria? Tinubu pushes state police in bold security shakeup. Tinubu is asking who policies Nigeria, and he's pushing state police in both security shakeup. At the top of the newspaper, Peter Obi condemns Sowere's demand. Peter Obi condemns Sowere's remand. Local refining slashes Nigeria's petrol import bill to 90 billion naira. Local refining slashes Nigeria's petrol import bill to 90 billion naira. Still in the same newspaper, U.S. names Nigerian 3 firms as ISIS financiers. U.S. names Nigerian 3 firms as ISIS financiers. Away from that newspaper to the Daily Monitor. On the Daily Monitor, which is boldly written, Tinubu transmits state police bill to Senate for consideration. Tinubu transmits state police bill to Senate for consideration. At the top of the newspaper, local petrol production hits 48 million liters per day, says federal government. The federal government are saying local petrol production hits 48 million liters per day. At the bottom of the newspaper, man expresses concern over decline in bank credits to manufacturers. Away from that newspaper to The Guardian. On The Guardian newspaper on page 6, U.S. sanctions expose terror financing amid growing security threats. To get that full story, go to page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Still in the same newspaper, Obi, Sirab, Gani Adams, Ejimako fought Sowore's detention in prison. To get that full story, you go to page 4 where Obi, Sirab, Gani Adams, Ejimako fought Sowore's detention in prison. At the bottom of the newspaper, Edo monarch orders native doctors, water priestess orders to curse kidnappers. This is coming from an Edo monarchy, orders native doctors, water priestess orders to curse kidnappers. To get that full story, go to page 3 of the newspaper. NDC images main opposition in Edo as APC PDP lawmakers defect. NDC images main opposition in Edo as APC PDP lawmakers defect. To get that full story, go to page 3 of the newspaper. Away from that newspaper to the Nigerian Tribune. On the Nigerian Tribune, which is boldly written on page 3, road getting clear for state police. Tinubu sends executive version of bill to Senate, wants speedy action. At the top of the newspaper, IGP bans police officers from TikTok, Facebook, orders. IGP has banned police officers from social media, that is TikTok, Facebook, and other social media. To get a full story, go to page 2 and 26 of the newspaper. Still at the top of the newspaper, Oyo declares 16 hours coffee in 10 local governments. To get a full story, go to page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Still in the same newspaper, INEC presents Oyibanji Deputy Certificate of Return. Oyibanji is the governor of Ekiti State. INEC presents Oyibanji Deputy Certificate of Return. To get that full story, go to page 12 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Away from that newspaper to the New Telegraph. On the New Telegraph in page 4, 7, and 29, which is boldly written there, Tinubu sends state police bill to Senate, 6 constitutional amendments. Tinubu sends state police bill to Senate, 6 constitutional amendments. At the top of the newspaper, PMS, Nigeria saves 10 trillion naira in 5 months on domestic production surge. To get that full story, go to page 4 of the newspaper. Still in the same newspaper, Ekiti gubernatorial election, INEC presents certificate of return to Oyibanji Deputy. To get that full story, go to page 2 and 9 of the newspaper. US designates Nigerian, orders financiers of ISIS. US designates Nigerian, orders financiers of ISIS. To get that full story, go to page 2, 5, and 7 of the newspaper. Lastly, on the New Telegraph newspaper on xenophobia, Nigeria orders should demand compensation for victims, says ex-envoy. This is coming from ex-envoy on xenophobia, saying Nigeria orders should demand compensation for victims. To get that full story, go to page 5 of the New Telegraph. That's all for today's newspaper review. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates. I'm Chidera Isom. Do have a beautiful day.